Okay. Today, I would like to speak on the spirit that's within us, but I'll just kind of explain a little bit of what it's about. And we all know we have we are a spirit that's well documented in our scripture. And we know that spirit has come from Yahweh. We should know that by now, that we're not our own. We belong to that which has brought us back. And so if it has brought us back, we were part of it from the first place. And so Yahshua described the spirit that we connect to as the spirit of truth, and the spirit of the comforter, and also an advocate for us. Well, in a certain state, we can't receive that spirit because we have descended into a world that has caused us to lose the senses that would connect us. Now, everything is still around us and is still happening, but we are somehow, we can't sense it, we can't detect it. So in a sense, we are lost, or we are in darkness, if you will. So if you remember what Yahshua spoke of, he said this, he said the spirit of truth, he said the world cannot receive this because it doesn't see him. It doesn't see that spirit. Okay? So we don't understand it because we used to, but now we don't. And it says, nor does the world know him. So the spirit of truth, the world cannot receive it because it doesn't see it and it doesn't know it. That means it can't see, and if it doesn't see it, it doesn't know it. We can't detect it. Okay, but some of us know the spirit, and the reason why we know it because we have awoken to the fact that it abides in the individual. That's the whole kingdom in the first place that is within you. You are of that kingdom. That kingdom is within you. You are in that kingdom. And the thing is, you are awakened to the fact that the flesh is actually the veil that keeps you from seeing and knowing who you are, that kingdom, and that spirit, the same spirit of truth. But it says when that spirit of truth comes, which is the comforter or the advocate, whatever you're going to call it, okay, which comes from the Father, is sent by someone, but it has to come from that which gave it permission in the first place, that someone to send it in the first place. And when you receive it, you are also given it, but it's not from you and it's not yours. You could only give it. So you are sending it basically based upon the things that you speak and the things that you do. But you have received it by thought. So it's in you by your thoughts, and based upon your thoughts, your heart is filled if you love this thing. And based upon what's all in our hearts, we project this very same spirit, if that's what we're all about. So we are sending the spirit out to it, just like something has sent it into us, but it's from the Father, okay? And it proceeds from the Father, okay? And it proceeds down to us, and it causes us to testify of itself, the same truth, the same spirit. It causes us, because now it's in us, it's abiding in us, it's in our hearts. And if it's in our hearts, it's going to come out of our mouths. It's just what happens. It's a natural thing that happens. So now, this spirit now, because it's the spirit of truth, it has to guide you into all truth. There's nothing else it can do. And when you and I have this spirit, we can't speak on our own. Ego has to be put down, okay? Because this spirit wants itself to be what is projected. So this is the spirit that's within you. If I was going to name it, I guess I would say the spirit in you, okay? So this is the spirit that's within you, and it's coming out because it's proceeding from the Father, And those who have authority to give it from the Father has put it into you. And you now have authority. If it's abiding in you, you also have the same authority to put it out based upon the words that you speak and the actions that you partake of within this earth, that people could look at and they could hear you and they could actually have that spirit come over to them. This is the water that Yahshua told the woman at the well. Okay, he said, the water that you receive from this well, you're going to become thirsty again. But the water that I give you, now remember, the sun is the water, the sun. The sun, the water that I give you will become living water in you because it's proceeding from the Father. It's the Son. It's the same word. And it will multiply and it will just be given out all over. This is what David said, my cup runneth over, because it's filled him, and then it runs over, and it runs over, and it affects everybody around him based upon what he has said and based upon what he has done. Now, if he's doing the thing that's proper from that which is on high, everybody is going to learn that. They're going to be converted through those things. This is the very thing that Yahweh called Israel to do. Everyone was supposed to look at the nation of Israel and say, how great is that nation? How great does the Father of that nation look out for it? Let's us also do the same thing, because that spirit was proceeding from Yahweh, okay, coming through the priest, coming to the people, and the whole nation was supposed to act in a certain way. And this is how things would spread to everybody. Now it's spreading, and it's going to spread because right now it's a time of awakening. And based upon the fact that it's a time of awakening, people are simply waking up. Now, just because we wake up to know who we are and the freedom that's within who we are, doesn't mean that we're going to be on the right-hand side of Yahshua, or we're going to be accepted back into this estate that we chose to leave. It doesn't mean that. Because when we find out what's going on and we wake up, we have two choices still. The same choices that Adam and Eve had. Okay? We could either put down self and serve totally, making our vessels ready for only the holy use of the Father, which is what the Spirit of Truth brings in. Or we can say, man, I got this freedom. I'm going to do what I want to do because I know I'm not going to be harmed permanently anyway. Okay? No matter what I do, I'm not going to be harmed permanently. Okay? Of course, in this world that we live in, there's going to be consequences for the physical person and the physical being. But when you get out of here, yes, you're once again free from that vessel that you descended into. Now, the Spirit comes down, and I would like to go over to the first scripture that we talked about, that we're going to talk about today, and that's Matthew 6. We went over it last week. Okay, Matthew 6. So this Spirit comes in, the Spirit of truth, the Comforter. And keep in mind what we spoke of concerning the diagram on page 662a that shows the temple, and that temple being a body. Now, Moshe had the children of Israel put together a temple based upon a pattern that he had seen, because that same body is above, and that same body is in you. As a matter of fact, you have descended into a replica of that body, and you function in that body and animate that a body that is simply a replica of what Moshe was setting up. The pattern of what Moshe was setting up. So in chapter 6 here, and verse 22, it says, now let's go to verse 21 first. It says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now the heart is very important, because the heart is what is attracting things. Okay, and based upon what's in the heart, either we're going to go for the lower man that we looked at last week. Remember, everything under the altar, okay, that which is under the altar is moving further and further into that which is sensual and demonic, and we go all the way to the base, and we saw that the tail did draw some of us, not all of us, but some of us, because we're not from here. We are sojourning here, just as our father Abraham. We're sojourning. But we're stuck. Okay, we forgot how to do certain things. We forgot. Okay, so now here we go. It says, the lamp of the body is the eye. We looked at that last week. Therefore, if the eye is righteous, okay, if the eye is righteous, your whole body will be full of light. Remember the light? The light is above. The light is what we were talking about last week, the 7-lamp lampstand that's in the holy place. Okay, and your higher self ministers in that in that holy place. Your malik, if you will, that's what the scripture calls it. Your malik, it's your higher self, and it does appear before the Father day and night on your behalf, because it's directing you, or trying to direct you and I in this earth. But our personalities, we want to do what we want to do, and we can do what we want to do to a certain extent, but there are boundaries to what we can do. We just can't do whatever we want to. There are boundaries, there are parameters, or perimeters. Okay, so here goes now. It says, but if your eye is wicked, your whole body will be full of darkness, and the light is not coming in. In other words, we're going to be blind. And the energy that comes in from the cosmos is going to be the energy that we're attracting. It's going to be a dark energy, not that which is of the light. If then the light within you is dark, how great that darkness is. So we're seeing now that there's darkness. If our hearts is full of darkness, then we're going to be attracting darkness into our field. Now, if we remember last week, we talked about we talked about the that which is outside the gates, which is which is the base, or what they call the first chakra, which is what is the symbol or the color red. Okay, base. Now, the light is above, or the light that is above is above the altar, which is the heart. The altar is the heart, and the light which is above the altar, or the heart, or should I say the energy centers that's above the altar or above the heart, is that which is above. It's higher. It's a spiritual part. Now, the darkness that's below the altar, or that which is below the altar, it is darkness. Whatever is below the altar is coming more into darkness. Now, the altar is a symbol of your heart. Your heart. So whatever is in the heart, now if it's moving towards the lower man, it's going to be darkness. And if it's moving towards the higher man, it's going to be light. Now, the altar is also the earth. And the priest now, for the priest has to minister at the altar, because the altar is the earth, where everybody is doing whatever they're doing, and everything meets at the altar for our third dimensional world. Okay, for our world, we have to meet at the altar. So for our world, for us to communicate with the higher world, we have to open up our hearts. And this is what it means now. When we speak and we do things, we have to make sure that everything is right within our own hearts, as far as we know. So if we close that, then energy doesn't flow through, the light doesn't flow through, because if we know something is not true and we start to speak it anyway, then we're closing that energy that would flow to the heart, because in our minds, we know that we're not doing the right thing, so we're actually searing that ourselves. We're searing that conscience, and the light that would move in is actually being blocked. It's actually being blocked. by what we already know we're doing. Now, our habits have also kept us, because there are those who have moved us into darkness. And based upon the darkness that they have kept us and trapped us into, the light doesn't flow through that darkness onto us. Now, if you remember Revelations chapter 12, we went there last week. Okay, I'd like to go there again today. Okay, Revelations chapter 12. And in verse 4, remember we said that we looked at this? Okay, it says, her tail drew the third part of the stars from heaven. Now, these stars are you and I. That's what the stars are. Okay? And did cast them to the earth. And we went to Daniel. Now, it doesn't mean that when everything is, you think everything is happening in Revelations, like later on, then something is going to be drawn to the earth. No, that was our fall. It happened already. Okay? And those who are working for that dark side, they have held us in captivity. That's why Yahshua, when he came, he says he led captivity captive, because we are captive to the dark. Those of us who left, the third of us who left our estate, were subject to the darkness, because we left that which was light, and simply we're caught. So in Daniel 8 and verse 10, now this is what's happening in the earth right now. It says right here, okay, it grew great up to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the hosts of the stars, and of the stars, some of us, a third. In the same manner, that's what Revelation is talking about, right? To the ground, okay, to the base, under the altar, all the way down to the point that we're doing everything that is of a base nature. The base nature, which feels secure in the earth, because that's what it is. You know, the base chakra is all about grounding and stability. So you feel safe in the earth based upon what we have been fed. And you and I don't want to do anything which would lead us to the spiritual opening or higher things, because they have told us that that's all occult stuff, and you're going to have demons getting on you. And yes, that is true. If we're not careful, that can happen, because it is occult. It's all hidden. But Yahweh is hidden. Okay? Yahweh is also hidden. Remember, we talked about the cloud. This is how Yahweh works, and he works through mysterious ways, which is hidden, a mystery. So he works through the occult things. Okay? And he put this rainbow in that cloud, and he actually caused us to remember. So it says, when he sees the rainbow, but that is that spirit of Yahweh, which is in us, that's going to cause you and I to start remembering. And we are the ones who's remembering the covenant. However, the way it's translated, we can't see through it, because now we're going to think that Yahweh needs to remember that he has a covenant with us. That's not the case. We are the ones, based upon the spirit of Yahweh that's within us, which has come down. We are all from the same thing. We're all cut from the same stock, okay? And we have to remember. So when we start waking up, we know that there is a covenant, because we start living according to the world that we came from. We start waking up to that. We start doing things more or less in that space right there. So here it's telling us that some of us did be cast to the ground, okay? So some of the stars, and trampled or oppressed, just like the son, the prodigal son. He was oppressed when he went on a far journey away from his father. This is exactly what we have done. He represents the third, or some of us who have walked away from what Yahweh has, from who we were, and we have become stuck. Okay? Now let's go over to Ephesians chapter 4. Now remember, if you remember the scriptures that tells you that you were preordained before in Messiah. You were preordained before with Yahshua. You were preordained. Okay? Now if you remember, that Yahshua is the son of Yahweh, which is Adam was the son of Yahweh, the same thing. And the son of Yahweh, which is a star, it's a light, stepped away from his estate. That's what Adam did. Because Adam in the garden was not deceived when he was first there. And the spirit of Yahweh was put into Adam, and Adam didn't need a book to know what was right or wrong, because the spirit directed Adam. But when Adam stepped out of the umbrella of the spirit, now this was the fall of man. So when Moshe came along and gave the law, it clearly told us what then was the reason for the law. And it says, because of transgression, the original issues that we had. That's why a law was then given. So the law could meet us in a certain place and slowly direct us back, like we're going to school, until we could graduate again. Okay, so here the law is given because of transgression to assist us, because now with the law, we're going to know that if we do X, Y, Z, that's not correct. That's going to have some problems. So we need to do A, B, C, and that's the right thing. So that's going to lead us in the area where we have favor and things could work out well for us. Now the law is going to help us with that. But Adam didn't have that law at first. Okay? Not the written law. Adam had the law within his person. Just as the spirit of truth, when you and I start to wake up again, that same law is waking up in us again. That's all that's happening. The same law that was from the beginning, when Adam came into the earth, when there was no writings, but it was written in his heart. It was written in his inward parts. It was already there. And so he learned, he followed that instruction until he walked away from it. That was his choice. That was his choice. Okay, of course, there was some goading and everything, but still, it's a choice. It's always a choice. We have a choice, guys. So in Ephesians chapter 4 here, let's look at verse 8. Okay. It says, hold on a minute. Let me see here. Okay, so it says here in verse 8, it says, that is why he says, when he ascended on high, he led captive and gave gifts to men, because he had the power, just as he spoke about in John, in Yachanan. He said, I will give you the spirit from my Father. He could give you a gift. He said, the spirit that is coming, this comforter, which proceeds from my Father, I will give you, which from my Father, which proceeds from my Father. He's going to give it to you. He has now the right to give you a gift. Okay, now this is not something that is new, because you had it before, but now you and I were just taken from it, or based upon our activities. So we were removed from that, but now someone who has overcome, he's now sending that spirit into the earth for all of us who are going to do exactly what he did. Because if we have that spirit within us, then that spirit is going to direct us in the very same manner for us to follow his example and actually wake up to in the very same manner. Okay, so it says here now, so he gave gifts to men. Now, what can this phrase, he ascended, means? Except that he also first descended into the lower parts of the earth. Under the altar, he had to descend because he's not from here, and neither are you. He is from that which is above the altar. Okay, that which is above the heart, or those frequencies that's above the heart. But he came down into the lower world. You did too, because you already preordained with him. Okay, from the very beginning, you are part of Adam, and you're part of Eve, and you're part of the collective Eve. Okay, so now there's an ascension into the lower world. So he descended. Now it says, he who descended is the one who also ascended far above all heavens, Well, he also wants you to follow in his footsteps because that's where you were before. As the son or the prodigal son who decided to leave his estate, okay, the wonderful estate that we have, to go and frolic in a moment of desire or pleasure, allow ourselves to get stuck here. He is trying to show us our way out of here because we all descended just like he did. And we all have the power to ascend if we now follow the instructions that he gave, that he died leaving for us to follow. So he who descended is the one who also ascended or above all heavens. Notice here, that he might fill all things. In other words, he may give that gift, that comforter, which flows from the Father or flows from the most holy place into the holy place, down to the altar where we meet in this third dimensional world, down into the lower depths of the earth where we're stuck at. Under the altar, where you have that which is central and demonic, okay, the valley of shadow of death, this is all under the altar or below the altar. Now, let's go over to Yada or Jude, okay? The book of Jude or Yada. And we're going to look at chapter 1. Let me start this. Yeah. There's only one chapter, so he says, therefore, I want to put you in remembrance, though you already know this, that Yahweh, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterwards destroyed those who did not believe. Now, the next verse is pretty much comparing what he's saying to what he said in this verse, this verse 5 here. He goes, and the malikim who did not keep their first estate. Now, all of us are malikim. All of us in one way or another. Okay? It's simply a messenger. You're working for a higher order. That's all it is. So the priest, if you look up the word malikim, you'll probably see that it's priest. If I remember correctly, way back, it was also priest. Okay? And the priest were working on behalf of something above it, but it was ruling over somebody else. Now, when you receive the same spirit of truth, you become a malikim in the earth, or you become a malik in the earth. But all the stars above, okay, you and I, before we fell, and we decided to come here, we were all on the same thing. We were working for a higher order, and therefore we were servants to that higher order. We were malikim. Okay, we were sons. Sons are servants until they receive their inheritance. They are simply servants. So the stars were servants. They were sons of the Most High. Okay, here. So we're looking at this now. So verse 6 is actually in comparison to verse 5. So those who didn't believe, or those who didn't want to follow the instructions, but went down and dabbled into the lower desires, became captive, became stuck. These are the malikim. Us. Okay? Now, we have been traditionally taught that malikim, they're angels, and we are they are way higher than us, whatever, and we just say the same thing, and they got to help us in whatever case. Well, in a sense, that is true. But in another sense, we have to, if we know who we are, we know that we're no different than the malikim. Okay? But we're stuck in a physical universe. Now, remember, Yahshua said to us now, he told some of his contemporaries, he said that when, in the kingdom, he said that we're all as the malikim. That's what he said. He said you won't have to give in marriage and all those things because you will be as the malikim. Because that's what you are. And that's what you are deep inside. And that's what the kingdom of heaven is all about. You and I understanding that we are light. We're that same spirit. And we have descended from our Father, and we have to ascend back to our Father to go back and do the job that we fell. We have to go back to the same estate that we left in the first place and got caught up in the darkness below. That's what happened. Okay, so some of us got caught up in the darkness, and we were cast to the earth. Darkness. So we're cast to the ground. A third of us into darkness because we wouldn't follow. We wanted to do our own thing. Well, now we don't want to do our own thing, or we shouldn't want to. We should want to get back. So let's go here now. We're going to look at. We're going to continue looking at verse 5. The malikim who did not keep their first estate, original estate, who we were, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains or continual subjection under darkness, because that's what we're taking into our energy centers. We're not taking in the light anymore. Remember, if there is no dark, if there's no light in that, but if your eye is dark, how great is that darkness? Well, when we accepted to fall the way of darkness, we got cast to the ground, and we're trampled underfoot. We're trampled under it, and we can't get out until we start to wake up and start to follow the way back out. So here it's talking about now. He has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness. So we are here in the world that is sensual and demonic, or in the valley of shadow of death, until the judgment of the great day. It's not forever. Now, the judgment of the great day is not a single day. It's a time period when you and I start to wake up. When we start waking up, because the spirit of Yahweh is released into the earth, and that spirit starts to wake people up, and they start realizing what's going on. Some of them are getting gifts, whatever. His handmaids, which are men or women, okay, and servants, they get a message within themselves because they have given themselves over to the spirit, and all of a sudden, they're being assisted to do that job. Now, things may happen to them in here because not every last one of them are set up to live in this earth. Some of them are going to be just like Yeshua. They're going to do a job, and they're going to be taken out. That's all it's going to be. Their job is going to be for whatever they came into this earth for, and then they're going to go. Okay? And if they go voluntarily, or they're just snatched out because they're being recalled, whatever it may be, they may not be in here for a very, very long time. So they're in darkness. They're in darkness because we all have come in here under the altar and have come down to the base energy center, okay, which is being cast to the ground, being cast into the valley of shadow of death, being cast into that which is central and demonic. We have left that which is light, that which is above, and we have come down into the darkness. Okay, so it says, in the same manner, Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities surrounding them, having given themselves over to fornication and gone after strange flesh, or the strange, the nature that we have gone after, okay, are set forth for an example of those who suffer the vengeance of eternal fire. So 5 and 7 is kind of like 6 in a spiritual manner, being told what's happening or what happened when us as stars didn't hold our states. We're kind of in the sense that we now are finding ourselves as rejects, as those in Sodom and Gomorrah, or those who didn't believe in of those who were in Egypt. Rejected. They were rejected because they weren't ready to believe. They weren't ready to leave Sodom and Gomorrah. Rejected. Well, the same thing with us. Those of us who did not want to keep our estate, we were rejected from being amongst those who kept the estate, who stayed in the estate. And we journeyed and went down, but we got ourselves stuck. Now, we're going to go over to Ephesians. Okay? Ephesians chapter 2. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 2. Okay? So the malikim who did not hold their estate, it's everybody. All of us who are in here right now, we are that very same. We're those malikim. So the malikim who did not keep their estates, they're held in chains of darkness until a certain time. Well, we are, and those who were before us, who moved off into the Luciferian rebellion, they're also held in chains of darkness. They are ones who caused us to follow after them. And when we came in to replenish everything, because things had gone bad based upon the Luciferian rebellion, so they also are held in certain darkness. Okay? But we came in to fix things, but we followed them. So if we did the same thing that they did, guess what's going to happen to us? Okay, we're going to be held in chains of darkness too, but the only difference is we are now subject to them because we obeyed them. So we are servants of theirs. And how they handle things, they keep us in darkness. And because of the fact that they have lost their ability to create, as Yahweh had sentenced them to, they have to use you, who they have bound under them, to create their world. And so we are creating their world by the power of the mind that's within you and I and everybody collectively. When they tell us something and we believe it and we start acting according to that spirit, which is coming in through our energy centers, guys. Okay, that energy is coming through our energy centers. But because we are full of darkness, we can't receive light to know it's wrong. So we're receiving their darkness. Now, they can't just outright make us do something that is dark. No, we have to choose it. We have to choose it. So they direct us into a place that we don't understand or see anything, and so we continue to choose that which is of the dark side. That's what we keep on doing. And we keep building their dark world based upon our thoughts, okay, based upon our words, based upon our actions. We continually feed them and create for them. Okay, so now remember that under the altar, it's that part of you that have descended into the earth. But you have another part of you, which is called a higher man, okay, which your Bible says your malikim or your malik does appear before the Father day and night. We'll bring that out another time. Okay, so there's two men. Okay, two men. The higher man that's above the altar and the lower man who have descended into flesh and have gotten himself stuck. Now remember that when you come to the place now that you could realize who you really are, you're not subject to one vessel. You're not subject to one vessel. Your consciousness could be in one vessel and be in another vessel, but not the individual in the physical world necessarily. But if that part of you which is above doesn't have to be only in one vessel. And every night, just about every night, when you go to bed, you're in the vessel that's in the body, but a part of you goes to another vessel or goes out. And it's doing things, and sometimes you dream of it, sometimes you don't. But then it returns back and to your vessel that you have in the physical world, which is not really you. And then it wakes up and it reanimates that, and you come out of the sleep, but you weren't always in that vessel. At one time when you're dreaming, you move to something else. Your scripture also told you that to be absent from the physical vessel is to be present in another vessel and around a different set of company. It tells you when you leave this body here, it says there is another body awaiting you. It's telling you another body. Now, the other body that's awaiting you is not one that you have to go into. No, it's in the body that you have right now. It's no different than you having a physical body and you take your clothes and you put it on in the mornings. You put your clothes with that. Well, inside the physical body, there is another body. And when the physical body goes down, you find yourself in that body. And that body is not physical, it's heavenly. It's of a heavenly realm. And all of a sudden, you find yourself around people who are in that realm, who could see this realm, but this realm can't see it. So what's going on? Now, in Ephesians here, chapter 2, now consider there is a higher man and there is a lower man. And the higher man is feeding you from that which is of the Father coming down. And Yahshua, he came into the earth, did certain things, okay, because he said he made himself ready for every holy use. And he awoke to all that again, and he ascended on high, and he has the authority to give you and I a gift, which is really what we already had. So, but we're waking up to it again. It's something that's inside the individual, but it's from a high. It's from the higher self. It's from the higher world. Okay, in Ephesians chapter 2, let's look at verse 14. 14, it says, for he is our peace, or peace offering. He is our peace offering. Remember the peace offering? Okay, we spoke about it a few months ago. He is our peace. Now, this is how you receive peace, by doing what he says. Okay. Who has made both one? The higher self and the lower self. The higher man and the lower man. Okay? And have broken down the dividing wall, separating them. It's not, separating us, separating them is all the same thing. It's the two sides of the individual, that if we come to the altar and we give the right sacrifice, then all of a sudden the higher self and the lower self sup together. And the Son, which is in the higher self, which is on high, which is above the altar, all of a sudden now is communicating with that part of you which is in the earth, and the message that is given to you in the earth, you now give that message, because that's what's in your heart, that's what's in your mouth, that's what's within your actions. And so now you're used by that which is above to work in the earth. Okay, he's our peace. Okay, now notice what it says here now, abolishing the enmity to the law, the commandments and ordinances. This is not Moshe's. This is not Moshe's. Okay, this is what you received before Moshe, what you had. But the dividing wall, the wall that was between us, caused us to fall to transgressions. And so Moshe had to be given. Moshe had to be given so we could know what was not proper, what was drawing us further down into the depths of the earth, the valley of shadow of death, to deal with more sensual and demonic stuff, and what was to help us to get out. This is what the law was. So it was written because we lost all connection. So something had to be given to us instructionally because we lost everything in a spiritual sense. So now when we followed the other law, remember Moshe said, everything that I'm giving you here today, it's in you. It's in you. But to awaken it, he had to give you something that was outside, which was instructional, for you to meditate upon that day and night so you could wake up to the other part again. But when you woke up to the other part again, how much would you be needing Moshe? Because Moshe is simply the school teacher that brought you back to Messiah, the Son. That's what Moshe was, or Moshe is. And so Moshe remains because Moshe is a pattern, but you and I have to understand where to put Moshe, because we can't continue to do every single thing that Moshe said to do when you wake up. When the light shines in, why would you want to kill an animal? Thinking that it's what's going to save you. It's simply not going to happen. Why do you think you need to be circumcised to enter the kingdom of heaven? Do you think Adam was circumcised? No, he wasn't. When he took on flesh, no, he wasn't. You know, come on. We got to think about this stuff. So here we go now. So he abolishing the laws, the commandments, whatever, through his own flesh, the nature that he already had, in order to create in himself one new man from the two, making both of them a unit, subjecting the lower man to the higher man. And the only way to do it is to bring him to the altar to meet. You bring the lower man, okay, when he receives the word, he knows, like the prodigal son, ain't nothing going on here in this lower world right here in the base center. I need to start moving back up to the high world. And as he's moving back up, he comes to the altar, and there his father meets him with the higher person. And it says that he saw him coming from afar off and threw his arm around his neck, bringing him back in. So what it's all about. So we're meeting at the altar. We give our sacrifice, and the sacrifice that we have to give is to put down the lower man so we could actually sup with the higher person again. Making the two of them one, then we wake up to the high world, of which we are of already. We just forgot everything. We forgot everything. And that's what we're dealing with in here. So now, creating himself one and making peace. Okay, so in verse 16 now, it says that would reconcile both in one body to Yahweh. Both in one body to Yahweh through the sacrifice that you do at the altar. Having killed the enmity through himself. And that's exactly what you have to do. The sacrifice is at the altar. Now Moshe set up the altar, and he brought animals. He told you to bring animals there. But the animal was yours and mine. What would you call it here now? The our enmity, if in other words, to what Yahweh has set in order. The ego. That's the animal. The animal that we have to sacrifice is the ego in its present state. Now, when we put the ego into union with the higher person, now the ego works for the higher person, and it gives itself over to the instructions of Yahweh. Now the instructions of Yahweh is not just Moshe. There is more to Moshe, or more to the law, or more to Yahweh than Moshe. If we get stuck on Moshe, we'll never see it through. It's impossible because Moshe didn't want you to do that. Moshe already told you that there is more to what he gave you. He said, there's one coming. That's the one you need to listen to. That one came and showed you the sacrifice, the true sacrifices. David already told you that those things that Moshe gave you to sacrifice are not the true sacrifices. He already told you that. The prophets told you that. Sacrifice and offerings, that's not what he wants because those are not the true ones. So we can't get stuck there. When the Spirit of truth comes, it's going to help us to see what those are. Now, David received a lot of this. And David actually told us that Yahweh didn't even desire those things. No, he doesn't. He desires you and myself to put down the part of us that holds us in this lower world. And when we put it down, which is death, okay? When we put that death down, the grave, if you will, so they call it, gravity that holds you and I in the earth, or the lower things, because we have fallen in, or we have been drawn into the ground or to the ground and have been held captive by the grave. That's where gravity comes from. The grave. So we're held here. Now you can't go anywhere because the body belongs to the grave or belongs to the earth. The body can't go anywhere. And for you and I to return, we have to know that we have to put down that part of the body. So you're all in here when you wake up to actually assist in getting your brothers out. That's what we're here for. So the way to do it is to reverence our Father, because that is the only duty that you and I have in this earth. Now I'm going to go to my last scripture. Let's go to Revelations chapter 6. Okay, chapter 6 and verse 9. Okay, verse 9. Okay, it says, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, hold on, let me see here. Okay, that's not verse 9. Let's go to verse 9. Okay. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar. Under the altar is that which is below the altar. Okay, the low man has descended under the altar. The heart has gone down into the lower depths of the earth. But anyone who brings the message in, those who are central and demonic or the valley of shadow of death, wants to take them out because they don't want anybody to be released from their subjection. And it's only for a time. Okay, so he had opened the fifth seal. I saw under the altar the souls of the men slain because of the light that they brought forth into the earth, that those who are in darkness don't want the light to come in. So they filled everybody's heart with darkness. And so men hate the light because they love the deeds of darkness. And they don't want the light to come in, so they have to hate the light. That's what, when the light comes and shines into darkness, people don't like that. And they do everything to discredit those who come in and try to give them light. We don't like that. Okay? So they start taking out all these guys who come in. This is why these are some lonely people, man. The ones who come in and give light, people could see what they're saying, but they got this little part of them that's like, I'm not liking that, because we love the darkness, especially when ego is holding us. When ego is holding us and someone comes in and says, hey, it's not done the way the ego does it. You have to put the ego down and do it this way. They're like, man, don't tell me that. You know, you're talking to me, bro. Don't tell me that. We all of a sudden put this thing up. There's some feeling in our gut, and we got to get rid of this guy because this guy is messing my ego up. He's messing up what I want to do, what the ego is directing me into. So the ego gets us to feel that that Yahweh is directing us and we're doing all these things for Yahweh, but yet we can't see because the ego has us blinded in or through the darkness. We don't see. We can't see unless we take that ego to the altar and kill it. When we kill it with the word. And so what it starts to do, it starts expressing the word. Its resurrection is in giving the word. We kill it that it may live in another form, not the form of that which is below, but in the form of that which is above, making the two men one and making it work for that which is on high. We don't want the ego to work for itself. So under the altar here, we find all those who have come in and they had the word, or they had this light, okay, the light of Yahweh, or the word of Yahweh. Okay, in the beginning was the word, and the word was Yahweh, okay, and it was with Yahweh, and it came into the world. People didn't like it because their deeds were of the darkness, and so they had to shun the light. So this is what it is, but they didn't know that the light was the life, their life. The word was put into Adam. Remember, Yahweh breathed the breath of life into Adam, and he became a living soul. The same breath is the word. Okay, the same breath is the word. The word is the logos. It is the spirit of the only begotten Son, which is light. And every last one of us has come out of the only begotten Son. Okay. So he goes down. So because of the word of Yahweh, the light that comes forth, or because it says here, because of the two witnesses held fast, whatever. But the two witnesses really are those who are going to function under that which is the laws and the prophets. Because remember, if it's not according to the laws and the prophets, there is no light. That means the word is not in it. And that's all I got to say for you guys today. I'll go ahead and close.